But you kind of alluded to it a little bit there with our next topic about
Doc!
Back to the Future 4.
Oh,
Where we're talking about Michael J. Fox being an absolute base boss. I love his response to
Oh,
this.
Michael J is awesome. Yeah.
how to go back in
He's
time.
such a legend, and you know what?
I want to
Like,
see his new documentary so badly. Yeah,
Still?
just dropped on Apple. I haven't got a chance to see it yet. Yeah.
yeah,
Still.
I've heard it's really really good. And this is like, you know, Michael J. Fox is just one of the most likable people. You know, like a massively likable guy. Obviously beset by, you know, pretty awful condition, but still powers on through. And you know, a true absolute legend.
Right.
Um,
Well, you
you
never
know,
heard
and
a bad story about him. He was always that boy next door from Canada,
yeah,
right? I mean, he was always lovable in everything he did. Even when he plays like obnoxious brats, he was still
yeah,
well. I mean, he stole the show Family Ties from the parents. Really, that for those who don't know, the show was initially supposed to be about the parents more so, and he kind of stole the show.
mm. Yeah. He's just a legend. He's just a legend. Nice chap. Uh, one of these people that just a likable guy. Like in all interviews, anything he does, he comes across always likable. Very very down to earth, right?
Great
Not
sense of humor, considering. Yeah,
yeah, exactly, and not Hollywood infected. You know. So basically, he addressed this whole reboot situation for Back to the Future. So it was a recent profile with Variety. Fox doesn't really care at all about. So he let's not get it misconstrued. He clearly cares about Back to the Future, right? But he cares about it in a very disconnected way because he understands the system. This is what's so funny about it. So he goes, look, I'm not fanatical. Do what you want. It's your movie. I got paid already. But it sort of, you know, goes a bit further. And he says, look, you know, I don't think it needs to be in terms of a, you know, a reboot, a remake. I don't think it needs to be. I think screenwriters Bob Zemeckis and Bob Gale have been really smart about that. I don't think it needs rebooting because are you going to clarify something? You're going to find a better way to tell the story? I doubt it. So this article is slightly misleading because like, oh, it sounds like Fox isn't possessive, you know, feelings towards it. Well, he is, because he's like, no, we made the definitive Back to the Future. You aren't going to get better than that. And no one will. You won't get better than that. You cannot get better than that. I love that response. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
yeah.
But Christopher Lloyd, you know, he doesn't really do a little bit here and there, but he says, yeah, he'd be happy to come back as Doc Brown. He says, you know, I'd love to do a sequel, but I think Bob Zemeckis and producer Steven Spielberg felt that they told the story in the 3 episodes. But if somebody has a brilliant idea that would justify a 4th film, it might happen. Yeah, only when certain people die. Bob Gale on the Collider podcast a few years ago said about says why they'll never get a reboot or a sequel. So for clarity's sake, we've seen this repeatedly with sequels that go back to the well after many, many years, and they go, well, The Phantom Menace. Maybe my life would have been better if I hadn't seen it.
I understand what he means. I'm not going to lie and say that, yeah.
We have an understanding with Spielberg and Amblin that there would never be another Back to the Future movie without our blessing or being involved. So it's not going to happen.
Understanding doesn't mean a contract, though, Bob. Just remember that. It better be in writing.
Wow, but they haven't made one yet, and this is the thing. So there clearly is a reason as to why. With all these things being pushed out, you think that they probably would. But look, what do you think about Michael J. Fox? His comments, his statements. I'm not fanatical.
You don't give a shit. That's just as legendary as John Carpenter's response when they asked him about his remakes. Yeah, he's like, "How do you how do you feel about your remakes?" He's like, "Look, this is how I feel. I put my hand out and they put a check in it." That's how I feel. He's like, I don't give a shit. I got paid, and that's kind of where Mikey's here too. He's like, I'm so beyond that at this point. Why would anybody do that? It would be just as dumb as, I don't know, remaking Ghostbusters, perhaps.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, see, no, it would never work. Why? Because Back to the Future is one of the most beloved films of all time. In fact, last I knew, they used to use it in writing classes, like in screenplay writing classes, because it's like screenplay writing 101. It's one of the greatest, tightest screenplays you'll ever find because everything is set up and pays off brilliantly. Yeah. There's no fat in that script whatsoever. In fact, even the one time they kind of deviate, it's still technically relevant because they're like, the only time we really wasted any time in the movie is when you stop for 3.5 minutes for Michael J. Fox to sing Johnny Be Good. But it's like, no, that actually plays into his whole thing with getting up on stage and not being good enough and the fear of, all that kind of stuff. It all has to do with him wanting to be a musician, So like, it's still there. It's still part of the story. It's a brilliant script. And even the sequels are really, really good. And you're hard pressed to find a perfect trilogy like the Back to the Future trilogy. There's not many. Not many. And the second film has aged so well. Like, I remember when people hated that movie. Right. People have this revisionist history about like when Empire Strikes Back came out, people hated it. It's like, no, they hated the fact that they had to wait 3 years to find out if Darth Vader was lying. People hated Back to the Future 2 when it came out. They were pissed about it. They're like, this is a dark, depressing, shitty movie. And that's why the third film everybody's like, oh, thank God, at least the third film was more bright and not so bad. But over time, people have come to love the second film. And, especially, with the humor and stuff of being way past 2015 now and everything like that. So no, at this point, why would you want to mess with it? Even if it's not in writing, I hope Universal's smart enough to never attempt it. They did that musical on what was it, in Britain here recently?
Yeah.
I don't know how well that was received, but I wasn't even a real big fan of the idea of that. But I guess that did okay. So whatever, that's mostly harmless. I just say leave it alone. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just love the fact that, as much as he's like, well, do what you want. It's your movie. I got paid already. But then the follow-up commentary about basically like, look, you're not going to find a better way to tell the story. You're just not. His statements are, we made the definitive Back to the Future. Everything will pale in comparison. And he knows it. We all know it.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't do it. You just can't. Oh yeah. Sorry. So culture. Yeah. What do you think, mate?
Well, now that Tom's given us the what do you call that? The dissertation about the Back to the Future, which he's totally 100% right. I always support Tom, and this is something he's quite passionate about. You can't remake this film. You can't remake any of these films. You not only would they pale in comparison, as you said, I believe that nobody would see them. I think they would be panned universally. I think it would be an incredible waste of money. And believe me, studios are smart.
Can you imagine the amount of money they'd have to spend on it as well in today's money to get the effects right? It'd be great. It'd be like, you're looking at like a $200 million movie easily, and it would just fucking bomb.
And it would bomb. It would be it's a terrible, terrible waste of money. There's zero point to doing that. I can't see a studio head saying this is a good idea. I just can't. Nobody's that interested in losing $250 million. I mean, believe me. Lose it somewhere else that you don't know is going to flop. Don't make a flop. Don't making a flop.
And I've seen a lot of people like come up with, and it almost sounds intriguing for a minute if you think about it, where people are like, just remake it, but have Tom Holland play Marty, and you got Robert Downey Jr.'s Doc. It's like, yeah, they could possibly pull something off, but it wouldn't be the same. It would be them just trying to do the same thing, right? Like, at this point, leave it alone. Do something like it if you want to, but otherwise, just leave it alone.
Yeah, I'd hate that idea. I think that sounds.
I don't even. They would screw up time travel. I'd be mad. I mean, I can think of 1,000 ways it could go wrong. I can't think of one way you could do it better. I just don't.
Yeah. There's no way you made this film better. They made the definitive one. They know they made the definitive one.
If you want a Back to the Future 4, people have done super cuts of the Telltale game.
Yeah,
it's pretty much Back to the Future 4. It's the closest you're ever going to get to it, and it's actually a very interesting story.
Okay. No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, it's actually it's like almost a movie or two's worth of story. It's actually pretty interesting.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice. Basically, it's about what if Doc fell in love with the wrong woman, and it changed everything. Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of a twist on what happened before. It picks right up pretty much where 3 leaves off. Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. I would have to check that out.